Welcome back to the Rhine Report. This is Stuart Rhine, and I'm calling today's podcast The Democracy Wake. In the aftermath of an incredible and powerful 7 million people record-setting national protest turnout of real Americans, I have unfortunately some few but important and uncomfortable reactions and thoughts. For this, to me, is like a funeral wake, a gathering held either before or after a funeral service where friends and family mourn and pay respects to the deceased. That is what No Kings has been, a heartfelt mourning and expression of grief which paid its respects to the deceased, the death of our democracy. While some, if not most, on social media have quite rightfully cheered this fantastic response to the evil emperor-to-be Trump and everything that he represents, I hate to be the Debbie Downer who diminishes the huge Saturday effort that has repudiated Trump's utter madness. Hatred, fascism, and all of the despicable lies, propaganda, unlawful militaristic actions of this woe-begotten Nazi administration. But all the social media ridiculing Trump or ridiculing of Trump's stupidity, anger, and diminished capacity do not move the needle against his rapacious and hateful temperament or his ability to inflict ruin on a democratic society he completely disrespects and rejects as the functional psychotic he is and always will be. So here we are, and I ask, what is the reality? What is the existential threat that we are facing? The reality is that despite our collective response to this evil bastard and his Nazi buddies, simply continue to defile our democracy by murdering people on the high seas with the assent of our military, abuse power by raising a private SA or Gestapo ICE agency army, extrajudicial army, with evil thugs in masks, body armor, and guns running uncontrolled through our streets, with the joyful agreement of our fascist-inspired Supreme Court majority who lend their enthusiastic support to him and who believe it is okay to racially profile the victims of these incursions and invasions, while his groomed Nazi women appointees to Homeland Security and DOJ with fake crosses around their horrid little Nazi necks, advertising a pretense to having some religious faith, continue to persecute and prosecute his political and other perceived enemies. As his congressional Nazi minions close down the government, destroying Medicaid, Medicare, and all meaningful federal agencies dedicated to the well-being of our people, obliterating the Voting Rights Act of 1965 once more with the assistance of our treasonous Supreme Court majority, while he, Trump, also endeavors to invent reasons to take military control of our streets, to consolidate his abuse of power used against unarmed civilians. Need I go on? Because the truth of our circumstances and existential threat is that Trump and his in-the-shadows puppet masters do not need any longer any popular support, having been voted into power by 77 million morons suffering from a mass psychosis. They now control the levers of power. So our universal opposition via mass protests has zero effect on his monstrous policies and unlawful proclamations, and this situation gets worse by the day. In fact, the more we peacefully rebel in massive numbers, the more it pushes this fucking maniac to further extremities in defiling our democracy as he installs himself as emperor, because we insult, in his mind, we insult him and embarrass him by our mass rejections, and that in turn drives him, like the psychopath he is, to the edge of madness, where he must, in his mind, follow a path of vengeance in order to retrieve his demolished self-esteem. Just look at the media. Just look at his social media. So what can he do to make matters worse, you might ask? Well, one thing he will do if he fails to believe he can win the upcoming 2026 elections, or win them through illicit use of paramilitary on the streets, or voting restrictions, or gerrymandering, etc., however devised, he will absolutely invoke the Insurrection Act, as he has threatened on multiple occasions, and he will cancel elections. And even call for martial law with an invented war, say against the perfect proxy, Venezuela, or civil unrest claim he'll make that will be given absolutely judicial deference by our ultimate legal authority, again, the Nazi Supreme Court, who have pre-exonerated him from virtually all crimes, even as lower courts reject his absurd claims. Regrettably, I predict that we are and will be tumbling face first into an era of totalitarian rule from which it will be virtually impossible to recover our cherished, however imperfect, democratic republic. I'm sorry to be the bearer of anything but glad tidings, but I would appreciate your comments, your views, your analysis. There we have it. Stuart Ryan signing off.